As a copywriter or marketer, this is an additional income stream that you can use to help influential individuals, including politicians, lawyers, doctors, even other speakers and coaches, that really gives you a consistent stream of new activities. It is supporting the production of a podcast. I'm Justin Hitt with Ad Briefing's Copywriting Tips. And if you're a copywriter, marketer, or you're in the business of helping people communicate, then pay close attention, because this is a unique approach to podcasting that can help you create projects for your client. Now, I'm assuming you're going to do this for your clients, but again, you could do it for yourself, because podcasting can be a very credible means to reach an audience. So you have this client who is trying to become a recognized expert, or they already are a recognized expert, and they're going to use podcasting to present themselves. Now, podcasting is not the best way to become a recognized expert, but from your perspective, it is 12 episodes a year. It's 52 episodes a year. It really just depends on the individual. Now, the more effective way for them to build their credibility in the marketplace is to write a book, to speak at events, or to otherwise do long-form content, because that gives them the widest array of demonstration when it comes to their abilities. Those are better assignments for you as well, because it's like writing a long-form sales letter or some other persuasion piece. But again, many experts, or those who desire to be experts in the marketplace, are familiar with podcasting. You can mention Joe Rogan. You can mention a lot of other different people with millions of people in their audience. But you can probably find in their industry one or two podcasts with 1,000 or more subscribers. Now, again, if they're a lawyer, a doctor, if they're a dentist, if they are in the marketplace of being an expert, they don't need 1,000 subscribers to make a podcast powerful or to make a podcast persuasive, because they're serving a local market. And now they can put that podcast on local television, even cable access. They have so many more channels to put that podcast and direct it towards a family set. So, for example, I have over 300 episodes of various podcasts put together, hundreds of hours of recorded audio, and it doesn't magically means people show up. But if you're a local professional, or your client is a local professional and they have a podcast, you could actually send people to the podcast from the local community. So there's a coffee shop in my town called the Daily Grind, and the owner is an expert in wine, and his sister is an expert in teas and coffees, and he has expertise in that area too. So he did actually a small podcast. Now, the benefit that you deliver to clients is you can help them stay consistent, because he does this podcast and it petered out over time, but he was sending his Facebook followers, his Twitter followers, his Instagram followers. He was sending local people from the shop. His podcast was mentioned in the newspaper. And so there was a very high concentration of buyers on his podcast, and then the podcast announced events and activities. Now, some of that was messed up with COVID, but ultimately, if he had hired a copywriter or a marketer to support the activity, you could help him in various ways. And I'm going to go over those ways right now. Now, when you don't just start willy-nilly building out a podcast, and you have to help the client understand they just can't sit down and record a podcast. Now, some of my podcasts are just train of thought. I got an outline on a piece of paper and I talk about specific topics. But that's because for 20 years I've been talking about these topics, and for 20 years I've been working with clients and coaching individuals, and so I can speak off the top of my head. But that actually is not very useful, because it doesn't always come out as coherent as it needs to be. So one of the things you can help a client with is, first off, an editorial calendar. You sit down with a consultation, you talk with them about the value of having a podcast or even long form media, and they may not want to do a book. A book could be $50,000, but you can say, look, if we have an outline for a book and you podcast on each chapter, Then later we can transcribe the podcast. So you're almost on a pay-as-you-go program, but you can transcribe the podcast, and that could be the draft of your book in the future. And so maybe they're not going to do $25,000 or $100,000 for you to ghostwrite their book, but they can pay you $5,000 now to help them build out the outline of the book, maybe write the book proposal, and then again another $5,000 to record 12 episodes. And then again, another $5,000 to distribute those episodes or set them up with a system for distribution and the marketing of the podcast. I can't stress enough that podcasts don't just magically get subscribers and listeners. You have to market them just like you would market a book, just like you'd market a long-form digital training product, just like you have to generate leads before you show a sales letter. But my point is, this is a very valuable service to your client to build out a editorial calendar. You may take all the recordings of their past speeches and extract from those what would make good little podcast episodes. Now there's an element of editing or setting them up with a studio. You can make it as simple as, in my case, I'm recording on an iPad using the memo program, and I got a headset on, and then in front of me I have the outline for today's presentation. You can have it as simple as that, or you can contract with a studio. So what I'm doing right now is not appropriate for a doctor because it's not always clear. The voice isn't as deep as it needs to be. It's not a good presentation. It's okay for my particular clients because you're more interested in the information and you're not a general consumer. So you're going to take one or two ideas out of this program. You're going to offer a new service to your client. You're going to get a few clients out of it. The success that you gain is more valuable than my audio quality, and I sincerely appreciate that because I'm not hauling around equipment. But many of your clients are selling to affluent customers. They're selling to the general public, and it does need to be clear, crisp, and professionally edited. And if you don't do that kind of thing, again, you build the editorial calendar, you may help the client write scripts and outlines, and then you subcontract a recording studio, bring the client in, spend time with them, coaching them about what's persuasive and order of words and things like that, and then have the recordings done. And that is a huge value service. So I was even in a mastermind that talked about how you tease people. So when I'm talking with you, I'm saying, can you see how this is beneficial? How many more new clients could you get if you were just doing the editorial calendar? How many more clients could you add if you were writing outlines, scripts, and the transcripts or the teleprompter scripts for individuals who already have podcasts? Or what if you were doing the research so that you could build compilations of old podcasts? See, I'm here to give you ideas, but that is a formula so that you actually go out and do something. Because if you don't take action with what I'm sharing here, then there's really no, you've wasted your time. Again, there's a lot of prospective clients out there that want to do a podcast. You send them a letter. You find out first that they're interested in doing a podcast, but you also educate them that, again, it's easier if we have an editorial calendar. It's easier if you have scripts, prompts, or talking sheets. It's easier if you have access to a studio or you have access to someone who can coach you about the language of persuasion. And finally, the marketing of the podcast itself. Podcast marketing can be as easy as a postcard. So we talked about the local provider who has a podcast or radio show. So a podcast really is just a radio show. But they have a podcast or a radio show going to their local market, or they might want to do every door direct mail to target specific communities. They might want to rent a mailing list of affluent customers or people who are their target customer. They may even want to hire you to help them go through their past customers and do audience matching and then pay-per-click directly to podcast episodes that are topical for specific audiences. Now that means the podcast episode needs to be more lead generation than simply just talking. So in my case, every podcast is designed to generate leads. I'm sharing with you 3 or 4 different ways to add new clients to your business, and you're going to get to the point where you have all these clients, and then you're going to want to grow and become a more effective copywriter or marketer, or run a more effective office, and that's where you're then going to go and ask for other details about the other programs that we have. But can you see how this works? You're writing scripts for the client, and ultimately the podcast sets up the reason why the listener would call your client. So it's another lead generation piece. It's another positioning piece. It's another way to inform their audience. But what is so valuable about the podcast concept itself is that you can help your clients record it once and use it for many times. So let's say you help them put together 12 episodes. That's 1 episode a month. They've got an editorial calendar, or it could be the outline for a book. They've got now 12 episodes. The follow-on services for this is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to you, because you can take their podcasts, transcribe them, turn them into special reports. So let's say you have a coach. You have a peak performance coach, or you have a career coach, and they've done 12 episodes that are all on the same theme, so they would work well in a book together, but they're different little chunks that were distributed over 12 months. At the end of the year, it could be re-edited into an audio program. It could be re-edited into a book for a bookstore, because again, that's more credible than the podcast. Or it could even be turned into a long-form talk and given away as a bonus. You may not be aware of this, but some of my longer podcasts or tangential audio programs that are maybe 45 to 90 minutes are actually back-end lead generation pieces. So I'll have a podcast that says, oh, by the way, if you're interested in such and such, ask a question. When they ask a question, I send them a link to the longer program. The longer program pitches a product, and it is a platform presentation. So again, the general, dentist, doctor, lawyer, elective care provider, psychologist, treatment program, they don't know what you know. And so you can help them by opening the door with something simple like a podcast, because they know what a podcast is. They know what Joe Rogan does. They know what other shows, you can even ask them, what shows do you watch? And then you say, oh, well, those are podcasts. What do you think of the people who are doing those shows? Oh, you see them as experts. Well, here's why you see them as experts and how you can use the same concept in your own business. That is how easy it is. So if you're a copywriter, you're perfectly skilled to write editorial calendars or to outline a series of content. You're perfectly skilled to write a script rather than a full article. Because again, this is not content development, because ultimately the audience your client has to understand that this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is how you position them as an expert. This is how you set them up in a marketplace to charge premium pricing and actually get it. This is how they dominate the airwaves on radio, on internet channels, on their local newspaper's website, because everybody's looking for quality content, and how they educate their clients. Chiropractors for years have been using CDs and DVDs to do demonstrations. Again, you can do that on YouTube. You can do that on Spotify. You can do that on all the channels that are available. But even if you've never been on those channels, you can use that audio with local media and make your client a celebrity. As a celebrity, that doctor, that lawyer, that dentist, that elective care professional, that consultant, coach, even a building contractor. We have a roofing company called Skyline Roofing that is near where I live, and they have a podcast style demonstration of different types of roofs and the different characteristics of roofs. And I know from direct interaction that it is getting them clients. Now they're getting $15,000 roofs, $20,000 roofs on a 5 to 10 minute presentation that profiles their product and service. Now it's entertaining, it's interesting, it's educational, it's of value to somebody who needs a roof, but they record the program once and use it many times. This is powerful. So if you already have a handful of clients, you need to be talking with your clients about the value you can deliver with them having a podcast, because their objections are going to be the podcast takes too long. I don't know how to record it. I don't know anything about distribution. Oh, I did a podcast in the past and it didn't work. Well, one of the things that they do not understand is that just because you've recorded it doesn't mean anybody's going to listen to it. But you can make the difference. Editorial calendars. You could even do research for them. Writing of scripts. Press releases. Finding the media channels. Same audience matching. And then doing pay-per-click campaigns driving directly to podcast episodes that are topical, or podcast episodes that are actually lead generation that lead to longer form materials or calling for an appointment. This is a powerful way, and it's easier than ever before. But again, high value clients need your help. So that's why I'm putting this out here as an opportunity for copywriters and marketers. I'm Justin Hitt with Ad Briefing's copywriting tips, and this is money making for you, by the way. This has been about how you can help clients do podcasts, where podcasts fit in helping your clients become recognized experts, and ultimately the value added part that takes it beyond a podcast and turns it into dollars in your client's pocket. This is a long-term activity for you. Once you've built out the editorial calendar, you can often offer bundles. You could write all of the 12 months of presentations. You could help them write speeches and even finish the book out. This is a relationship you're building with a client using a simple concept that I hope you've gotten today. Now, again, if you have any questions, you're going to contact me at www.adbriefings.co.uk. Go to the contact page, write your question in there, give me your contact details so I can get you an answer back, and I'll see you in the next podcast.